Good evening and welcome to the Federal City Council special meeting for December 7th of 2021. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you everyone, and welcome. We've got a very special City Council meeting tonight, and we're going to be having a presentation from Tim Johnson, our Economic Development Director. Councilmember Moore is on his way. He'll just be a few minutes late. And oh, great. Okay. And then we do have executive session following this with our meeting that starts at 6:30, so we should probably wrap this up. Ryan, remind me, how much time will executive session take? 20 minutes. Okay, so why don't we say, let's make sure we get done at 5 till? Quarter till?
So we can have 15 minutes between.
Okay. Yeah, let's say about quarter till. Quarter till, 10 till. Okay, great. All right, Tim, welcome, and thank you for all the work you've done. And if you could maybe start by introducing the subject and your team.
Thank you, Mayor, Council President, council members, new council members. Welcome. Tonight before you is a report that has been long in coming. I'll explain it in just a moment, but before I do, I'd like to introduce some of the team that have participated in this. Not all of them are here. They're fighting traffic trying to get here, and I'll make sure that if it's during the course of, at the end, I'll make sure that they're all introduced. If you'll raise your hand, Alex Forte is one of the young men who worked with us from the University of Washington. They're all from the University of Washington. We had 6 of them who participated in that, and I want to just bring to everybody's attention, it is now the oldest economic development internship program with the University of Washington in the state, so we're very proud of that. Also, it's Jason Godoy with the University of Washington. He is from Tacoma campus, and so we appreciate Jason joining us. Ankit Bhatt is here with us. Ankit was running short late. Did you by any chance pass Dominic or Quinn on the way here? Well, Ankit is at the Seattle campus, and they worked diligently with me over the last year to formulate this report for you. So with that, let's get started here. 2 years ago, just before the pandemic in February 2020, at the City Council retreat, the Mayor and Council identified the goal of becoming a tech hub. Now, the pandemic had other plans, but your city staff was not deterred. Before you is what city staff believes is the most significant public policy opportunity to come before the City Council, an action plan to become a tech hub. We thank you for your leadership on as which you identified as a goal has become readily apparent and evident to us at city staff level that this is an unequaled opportunity, and an opportunity that will transform Federal Way. This presentation will illustrate those opportunities for your continued leadership to enhance, diversify, and bring the community together in a positive direction. This opportunity has provided city staff with an unequaled perspective of your leadership, for which we are honored. It has been gratifying, and it is even more so honored to present this to you this evening and be subsequently in receipt of your furtherance of your leadership. So with that, let me begin what will be about a 10-minute presentation, and then I'll take some questions from you. Our findings. In order to figure this out, we started with a series of case studies, 9 to be exact, both global and domestic. And the efforts were to look at communities that were similar in size, a part of an urban region, located along a major interstate or transportation corridor, that did not have at the time, but did not have a university in its backyard. No college, no university, similar to what we have. And what we came up with of interest were 9 cities across the globe: Alpharetta, Georgia; Greenville, South Carolina. I'm being knocked off of here. I could use some technical assistance. I don't know what's transpired, but we'll try to go back in here and try to make this happen. Let's see if we can get that. Is this going to happen? Thank you, sir. Don't go too far. Lancaster, California; San Leandro, California; South San Francisco, California; Richardson, Texas; Songdo, South Korea; Milton Keynes, England; and Petersburg, Virginia. Now, within the context of that, why we didn't look, and we're not necessarily interested in what type of tech hub they embraced, we wanted to know how they did it and how they became successful. Now, why we have them listed in here, Alpharetta, Georgia, and financial tech; and Greenville and advanced manufacturing, along with Petersburg; Lancaster on energy, San Leandro, Internet of Things; South San Francisco, which is basically the home of biotech; Richardson, Texas, which is well-known, documented for decades in information communication technology; Songdo, which has become a smart city; Milton Keynes, which is focused on autonomous technology. They all embraced something that they saw a comparative advantage in and worked it well with the universities that they then partnered with. What was the magic elixir? As we went through this process, and you have all of these case studies in this beautifully bound book. What came to the forefront as we looked at this was 3 issues. First, that the tech hub had to be initiated by local elected political leadership. You did that in 2020. You're here tonight to make a decision on the commitment going forward. That it had to be engaged, that the local elected officials had to work diligently with the private sector, and specifically in creating jobs, bringing assets such as capital to the community. And third, cooperation, if not outright partnership with the university. And when we go back and we look at those, for instance, Milton Keynes, they took on 2 of the best, Oxford and Cambridge. Not even close to them, but their local elected officials decided, if we're going to do this, and we're going to do this right, let's do it with the best that we have in our nation. And all of them did this. Even Lancaster, California, which has, you would think it is out in the middle of the desert and has absolutely no connection to any university. The closest would be Cal State University, Bakersfield, and or UCLA. They got neither one interested. They went to Canada and brought the University of Ottawa to their backyard and were able to be successful in this effort. So please remember, these are the 3 key fundamentals. These are the 3 legs of the stool to be successful. So here are the universities that they worked with. I find it fascinating because, as many of you know, I'm a graduate of Stanford. And Stanford is on here a couple different occasions. Stanford is in Songdo, South Korea. It's also with South San Francisco. But you can see the level of formulation of a partnership with the universities that made them successful. Now, going forward with this, if you have that 3-legged stool, what's the next step to the magic elixir? Well, the first one appears to be investment in infrastructure. And one of the things that the council did back in September was approve the city staff report to apply for a broadband grant. And we got that grant to look at our marketplace moving forward, to look at how we can enhance our broadband speeds, consistency, what else am I forgetting? Width. Those are the big three that we have to ensure to make sure that our community is successful. Recall during the pandemic, you allocated $100,000 out of CARES Act to help our neighbors to the north, the school district, with locating or deployment of hotspots. And we know that there is an issue of lack of bandwidth throughout Federal Way in many different locations. And we need to get to the bottom of that to figure out how to solve for X, which is, as Councilmember Kochmar, you've always said to me, Tim, I want speed, speed, speed. And that's where we're going to go with that. And later tonight, we have that staff report on consent for your approval to accept that grant from the state. The other element is to create and assist a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, which was fascinating for our interns, was that as we went through it, we found that we have no business incubator, let alone accelerator, let alone startup studio, let alone business foundry. We have no angel investors, let alone venture capitalists, let alone equity investors. And you're talking to the only person in this room that sits on a board of directors for a community development financial institution as it relates to getting to capital for investment. So, and of course, which we did use on the PAC. So as it pertains to that, we also don't have any maker space. We have little, if any, co-working space. We don't use mashups. We don't use meetups. And we have never done a hackathon on anything that we've ever done over the last decade here in the city. So there's a tremendous amount of work that we can do. Now, I grant you, we do have an innovation center at what was Weyerhaeuser, and it's now operated by International Paper. But it's on cellulose fiber, and I don't know how many people are showing up to line up for use of that at this particular point in time. But it is an asset for us which to illustrate in marketing Federal Way moving forward. Two other key elements that city council members and mayors play a key role in is convening the community. Without convening the community on a whole host of activities, and one that we'll talk about here shortly on the National League of Cities, is tantamount to the success of bringing the community together in a positive action with positive outcomes. And then the constant analysis and ongoing promotion of Federal Way. There's nobody that does that better than mayor and city council members, and that's your role. That's a real key role in moving forward on this. So it is tantamount to this. And then I want to stop for a moment, because a lot of things have happened while we were doing this work, and there's no better time to reflect back on what transpired. One, we were one of 4 cities that got the state broadband grant. That's phenomenal. And that's because of those young people. There's Dominic Minicillo, also from the University of Washington, Seattle. They saw this. Their research identified that. And because of this, it was timely. The grant was coming on at the same time we were writing this. We knew that we had to go after that grant because we knew what the outcome would be in our report. If you don't have a strong infrastructure, broadband system, you're not going to be successful at becoming a tech hub. So we did it. And I think for all the right reasons, and tonight you get to approve that. The second item is the mayor, the council president, and council member Asefa Dawson participated, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I apologize, in the National League of Cities award presentation to Federal Way. We are one of 8 cities across the country that have been given the award for its National Community Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Initiative Program. That's a mouthful. But what that provides is a grant from the Kansas City-based Kauffman Foundation for us to work with our community to help engage working with entrepreneurs. And we've never done that to the level that the National League of Cities wants us to do that. And that was a great honor. The mayor got to speak at the event. We were actually supposed to be in Salt Lake for that event. It had to go to video platform because of COVID. But those two elements, coupled with convening and promotion, are tantamount to the success of becoming a tech hub. So here's the 8 steps that we are looking at as it pertains to achievement of a tech hub. 1, you initiated this in 2020. Thank you very, very much. We engaged and worked with the university. And in this particular case, we've been working diligently with the University of Washington on a whole host of things. One of those right now is dealing with esports, e-gaming, and an effort on that. We're also dealing with them on a program for our senior citizens on banking and financial technology equity, which is a significant issue. We're working on a whole host of other activities with them. Engage and work with the private sector. So here's an interesting direction. Our focus of attention, while we'll still balance our efforts out to work with large corporations, it is really tantamount for us to balance that with our local entrepreneurs and grow that base. And I'll show you in a minute what's called a Red Sea, Blue Ocean marketing campaign. Efforts to invest in the infrastructure as identified, ensure the entrepreneurial ecosystem, promote, convene, and stay constant and consistent in the commitment. What we noticed from all of these communities is that it was a decade worth of hard work, putting their nose to the grindstone. No matter who was in political office, it was a commitment throughout 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, let me tell you, the success stories are overwhelming as identified in the case studies of what was achieved in the ways of jobs, enhancement of increased incomes for folks, that young people who were in their schools were able to go to college and come back and find jobs in the community that they were born and raised in. Just a tremendous opportunity. So here's our recommendation as it relates to the mayor and council actions. First, as we talked about broadband. This study that we are to undertake that we received from the state of Washington requires us to formulate a broadband advisory task force. Next month, you'll see the full outline of that program and what it entails and what responsibilities and roles are moving forward. But it will be identify opportunities for implementation. So it will get us an understanding of all the positive input from the community of what their interests are in broadband, not only from residents, but from retired young people, our businesses, our nonprofits. Everyone has a seat at the table to be able to ascertain what that is. And there's no right or wrong answer. And from that point, we'll then subsequently look into our efforts of implementation later on. Our entrepreneurial ecosystem development, this is going to be an opportunity for all of you to work with our entrepreneurs as we get in through next year. The ability to actually sit down with them and learn what their issues are, what they're confronted by. In a perfect world, what would they like to see? And specifically those that are not just innovators in terms of technology, but also those who are Main Street entrepreneurs. Those people are working from home as well, so that we can see if there is a brick and mortar opportunity for them. Additionally, the University of Washington will be making their presentation on the opportunity for e-gaming on the 14th. Before you are 2 letters, one that was stimulated by Mayor Farrell to the president of the University of Washington, and her response, as you can see, she penned a lovely letter as it relates to the activity of working with the city and all of you, and I think that bodes extremely well for this process. On January the 7th, I believe that our chamber director, president, CEO is going to have her big pair of shears for a ribbon cutting ceremony on January. She's given me a thumbs up for that event, and you will all be invited to that. That has been almost 9 years in the making, but it is really going to be a great asset for our community. Meanwhile, the University of Washington, we entered into a regional agreement. They're doing a tech labor study for us in Federal Way in South King County and North Pierce County. We'll have that will be completed by the university. It'll give us a better indication of what the skill set and expertise and education levels are here in our backyard for growing and expanding tech-based industry. And then something that some of you were around for, and you may all know it and remember it, it was an unbelievable event we hosted in 2018, and that was a very busy summer for us because we had 3 major events going on, and this was one of them, the International Underwater Robotics Competition. Well, thanks to Mike Dunwitty over at King County, he winked at me and nudged me and said, Johnson, they want to be here because they found that we were the best hosts that they've been with in 2018, and they want to be here every other year starting 2023. If you recall, the mayor spoke at that, opened that ceremony up. There was 2,400 people from around the world and teams that showed up for this event. And it looked like a small version of the United Nations. Wouldn't you agree, Mayor? It was amazing. And so this opportunity presents itself, and with that, who knows what great and wonderful things will occur beyond and above that. But these are important elements for you to participate in and lead and continue to lead. Here's what I was talking about. Why do we do this? Why do we do this specifically with our entrepreneurs? A blue ocean is where I don't have to go out as your director of economic development with the chamber president and have to compete against 14,000 other cities across the country. I've got 3,000 some known entrepreneurs in our backyard. And if I can get them to work with you and your leadership, understand what their needs are, we can redevelop or refocus our attention on building a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem for them and grow them here locally. The Red Sea is obvious. It's the Shark Tank. That's why it's red. It's because we have to go out and compete with everybody else, and everybody's gobbling one another up, and it turns the sea from blue to red. And that's the difference in the strategy. Where would you like to be? Left side where it says compete in a new market share or fight for existing demand? I know where I'd like to take you, where the waters are calmer, you can see your customer, you can work forward and make major impacts, inroads moving forward. Okay, we title it ambition, but it's ambition without pretense. We have some lofty goals, but you know there's an old adage, go big or go home. So here they are. We want the fastest speeds in the state of Washington. We want to become the most advanced smart city in the Pacific Northwest. You're getting there with those cameras that you put out all over the place. And we haven't even talked about that because I don't want your eyes to gloss over. But you think about what you collect and a non-civil rights issue on those cameras. Like, what's the color of the most cars that go through 320th and Pack Highway on a daily basis? And think about how Hyundai, Ford, GM, and the rest of the manufacturers would like to know that information. Think about the fact that we have high-definition cameras and they can actually look at other things such as who's got what kind of package on the brand of car that just drove by, and what does that look like in the Pacific Northwest as versus somebody in the Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, whatever the case may be. That's how we start monetizing revenue in the city and start becoming a smart city. It's intriguing. Produce the finest entrepreneurial ecosystem in the Pacific Northwest. Ask me why I didn't say the West Coast. There's some big folks in California that are out in front of us. So we got to take one step first before we get into that competition, but we'll get you there. most connected city to higher education in the nation. I'm convinced with what we're doing right now with the universities, whether it's UW or Washington State and all the work that they've done for us just in the last 24 months, we are headed the right direction with that, and we're going to start building in volumes stories that tell us how connected we have become. And last but not least, we want to become the global center for disruptive technology. We want people to come here with new innovations. We want them to feel that they're welcomed here. And knowing all of you, and that you went out and said, this is our goal, I'm sure that you want this. I'm absolutely positive you want this, because that's your leadership style, and you want to continue to push this forward. They're all here now, so I get to go through this. I want to just acknowledge a couple folks. We didn't do this in a vacuum. These are folks from the University of Washington, and they're working on all sorts of fronts for us. And you recall Dr. Robert Harmon, who's an expert in tech hubs, provided genuinely his effort. He spent over 40 years looking at tech hubs across the globe. And he gave that lovely presentation almost a year ago to date for us, and along with that report that you all have. But the University of Washington has just been phenomenal, and we can't thank them enough for their work. And last but not least, I want to thank these 5 young Turks back here, Ankit, Dominic, Quinn, Alex, and Jason. We're missing Taylor. Taylor was in a class tonight on, I can't remember what mathematics class. I couldn't even pronounce it. I said, I get it, I understand it, go for it. And they're joined by Mary Cho, Mary was with us 2 previous years as intern from the University of Washington. And she helped on this study in keeping the interns moving forward, and I appreciate that immensely. Maya Steben, you might recognize her last name. Her father was a lieutenant in our police department, and Maya was at the University of Pitt, and because they were remote a year ago, she was able to participate as the only University of Washington candidate not engaged in the program. And so she helped on formulating the framework to make all of this happen. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. But again, I cannot thank you enough for your leadership. It's just, in my nearly 40 years, and I've been in some pretty big cities, this is phenomenal what you did, and I can't thank you enough.
All right, thank you, Tim. All right, we've got Councilmember Seppa Dawson.
Thank you so much. Oh, I turned it off. Thank you so much, Tim, for the presentation, and thank you for this product here. Really appreciate it, and it was great meeting with you guys, and I appreciate the work that you have done into this process. My comment one is when you were talking about economic development strategy, you addressed residents in the community, and I do appreciate that, because I think when we center the people in the community in all the work that we do, I think we'll be very successful, and we'll meet the needs of our community. So that is, I really appreciate that, and addressing the strong diversity and inclusion and all the thing that you said about sustaining Federal Way. And I was at on a Zoom yesterday with Highline College, where they were talking about the 2020 statistics, and the trend really is indicated in the report that you have in here. So thank you so much. One thing that you have addressed, not in this presentation, but you talked about a decade of concentrated efforts by political leaders. And I think what I would like to suggest would be that we talk about this during our retreat, put it on our retreat agenda, so we know how to communicate this to our residents, to our communities, and to our businesses, have the talking points so that we're all familiar, aware, and we know where we're going with this and how we can lead by example. But my question is, right now you did talk about becoming the most connected city to higher education. how do we do that when we have all these university communities like Seattle has, UW, it has Seattle Central, it has all these other colleges and technical schools? How do you see us getting there and compete with all these surrounding cities that already do have the infrastructure for higher ed?
I'm laughing because it's pretty simple. Technology and innovation. We've got to use it. We've got to figure it out. It's our solution set to find. And if you read the case studies, the young men did an absolutely lovely job of identifying how their mayors and city councils achieved it. There's 9 different examples in there of how they went about and did it. And we can do the same thing, or we can apply our own new thought process to it. But it will take technology and innovation to do it.
So do you see us getting there in the next decade?
Yes.
You do? Okay.
I do. In fact, I expect that you are already along the path towards success, and I bet within 3 years, this city is doing things that it never thought of achieving before by working with our universities, all of them.
Great, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Norton and then Councilmember Cookmore.
Thank you, Tim. That was a great presentation. And thank you to the students who assisted Mr. Johnson. It's a really good presentation. I went over most of it today. I have a question. Can you give a better description of what disruptive technologies is?
Sure. So let me give you a quick definition. It's an innovation that specifically detours consumers, individuals, companies, businesses, functions. So it's a new business model, and it can involve anything from artificial intelligence to virtual reality. Oh, and by the way, all of you lived through something, e-commerce. Remember how disruptive that was when that first started? And now look at what it is today. It's mainstream, and we continue to mold it to our own needs in our society. So that's what disruptive technology is. Another one might be autonomous technology. Company in the backyard of Puget Sound, Amazon, is looking at utilizing drones for home delivery. That's a disruptive technology that may change things. I'm not saying that that's what you do here, but there are great opportunities that could be here in Federal Way, and we need to look at those. And that's where your leadership comes in.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cookmore.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as I've told you before, Tim, I had an uncle, he's passed away. He built large buildings in downtown Portland, Oregon, and the funny thing is he'd build the building, but what he would keep would be the parking garage, because the paid parking garage is where the money was. So he told me that the most important thing when he's looking to build a building is the high-speed internet, what's in the ground. So as far as your broadband, your consultant study, tell me the nuts and bolts. The study is going to study where it's going to go, how it's going to go. Are we going to dig up everything? What's happening?
Okay, so what it's going to give you, and we're kind of jumping ahead here because I'm going to have a full report for you right after the first of the year. But it will have a scope of work that identifies just some of the very things that you talked about. Now, there won't be any right or wrong answer, and oh, by the way, it may have a very big price tag. But understand this, that it doesn't all get done overnight. These are the things that you continue to phase, and the technology will continue to impact it as we go through deployment. So we have to take this all into account as we move forward with building a tech hub. But yeah, your family member is exactly right. And one lesson that we learned, and it was a hard lesson, and EJ, our Public Works Director, and Thomas, our IT Director, and I scratched our heads as we watched the dislocation of 2 financial institutions in our community due to Sound Transit, Washington Federal and Sound Credit Union. It took them weeks, even though they were physically across the street, it took them weeks to get hooked up to the internet. Because of our systems, our age of our systems to get them to where they need to go. We still have copper out there, for goodness sakes. And we need to move that in the right direction with our business community, but also with our residents. So we have a lot of work to do, and this is going to be a heavy lift. But every community that we listed on this for you all went through that exercise. Every one of them.
So really, the study is going to tell us where to start and how to do it. And,
Exactly.
yeah, piece by piece. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Walsh.
Tim, thank you for that great study, very well researched. One question that I have, I've presented to you before, kind of playing the devil's advocate for a moment. One of the challenges that we have here in the community is a public school system that sadly is somewhat substandard. And with these technology companies, are they going to want to come to Federal Way to bring their employees here, their employees' families here, when we have a public school system that is substandard? And on these 9 areas that you studied, cities that you studied, what were their public schools like? Were they, did any of them have similar challenges to what we have here?
It's intriguing. They all did. All of them did. And some of them had Fortune 500 companies in their backyard, such as Lancaster with Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed. In fact, Lancaster is a benefit of having the Lockheed Skunk Works, which is probably the world's most renowned location for building the highest tech of military aircraft anywhere in the world. The point I want to make with that is, council member, it's back to you and your leadership. I think we really have an opportunity to develop a whole host of programs working with our neighbors to the north and our youth in the city. Maybe through some kind of youth entrepreneurial program, maybe with working with adults who are entrepreneurs in a mentorship program. We need to come up with creative, innovative ideas to ensure that that can be raised and those young people understand that they're a critical component of our economy moving forward. Don't have an answer. Each community came up with different solutions, Mayor, and there wasn't one that was any one particular better than another. But I think that the programs that we're looking at in e-gaming and underwater robotics and maybe a youth entrepreneurial program are just some of the things that get youth turned on about the importance of going to school, studying science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Norton, and then Councilmember Chang.
Thank you. Okay, one more question. So regarding the broadband technology, so will Federal Way be providing broadband as a service to the citizens? And is this something that could be a potential revenue source for the city once it's installed?
That's a really good question. In our research on the case studies, there's one community that I want you to focus your attention in on the case studies, and that is San Leandro, California, which is similar to distance from Oakland as we are to Seattle. And they were a heavy, heavy auto manufacturing facility. Most noted today, adjacent community, Fremont, is where Tesla is built at the former NUMMI, Toyota, and General Motors manufacturing plant facility. Losing all those high-paid union jobs created a real desperate situation for them. Of interest, they had no idea which way to go. Public-private partnership. There's a lady by the name of Kathy Otterson, who Jason and Alex studied at length, who is the president of what's a company called San Leandro Light. And she went to the mayor and city council of San Leandro, and she said, how would you like to, now that you've studied your marketplace, how would you like to enter into a public-private partnership? And she did. What is fascinating about this is she lives here. Her husband's works as a senior executive with Boeing, but she flies down to San Leandro into Oakland once a week, spends 3 days there, and then comes around and comes back. That's the kind of creativity and innovation that we're going to look from this report on broadband for, is how to do that. So to answer your question, I have no idea yet. But what I did learn, what we learned from this case study was it became a financial revenue stream, but at the same time they did that, they ensured the fact that the residents got low-priced, high-speed access to the internet. And they didn't have the problems during the pandemic that we did because they ensured over 10 years ago that that was their mission. And they've been successful at it. And she continues to run Light San Leandro. A tremendous story.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Tran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Tim, for the report, and thank you, student, for helping out with this. I just want to let you know that I have special love for UW because I came from UW, and all of my 3 children graduated from the U. So, go Huskies. Tim, so I do have just one question. You did mention about the time frame. It could be 3 years, could be 5 years. What is the price tag?
This is what was fascinating to us. The biggest cost, and we don't know what that's going to be, is on broadband and the deployment and construction, obviously, of that infrastructure. Outside of that, everything else that we identified that came through the case studies were easily covered by the standardized general fund accounts that you approve every year through your program. This entrepreneurial ecosystem project came with a grant from the Kansas City-based Kauffman Foundation. So we're not going to have to put out any money associated. Yeah, we're going to have staff time into it, but we walked right into that one. Yay. Many of the other programs that have listed on page 10 on the executive summary that kind of highlight some of those opportunities, I believe that, excuse me for a minute, page 11, my apologies. When you look at some of those, they're really are programmatic, focused with little, if any, cost. I mean, in part of that is the focus of our efforts as we identified on maybe a mentor program, Councilmember Walsh, an incubator, working with our Chamber of Commerce on an accelerator. Did I get that right, accelerator? Thank you, ma'am. Hosting the International Underwater Robotics Competition. We've got that programmed. Identifying, implementing. Well, here's a good one. The mayor has to be. I gotta give the mayor credit where credit's due. Eyes on Federal Way. So he comes back all hot and bothered about a project at a family gathering. He was at mayor and he said, we got to do this. Well, then it led us that we all started laughing as a group together saying, well, why don't we get the mayor all bothered about an effort every year and force him to go to more family gatherings where they make him come up with another idea. So we believe that we should identify and implement at least one new tech-based solution per year to city issues. What those would be, I have no idea. But we need to start using innovation. And Councilmember Moore, I know you're going off the council, but you always said you wanted more on dashboard. And one of the elements that we had in there was to ensure the fact that we have an annual report so you can see the progression occurring and what the impacts are. And these are not high-cost elements. The biggest high-cost element in there is still yet to be identified, and that will be broadband.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Tim Johnson, you've done it again. With some assemblies required and now ambition, I'm just grateful for the impact and the legacy that you're living, that you're putting together. And I just appreciate your work, your time, your energy, and passion in this. And if you know Mr. Tim Johnson, he doesn't just do an 8-to-5 job. It's late hours and whatnot. So I know you've put a lot of time into this. To our students, I've had the chance to meet some of you, and I've had the time to kind of come into your office and bug you a little bit and get to know you guys. I want to say thank you. You guys are leaving a legacy behind right here. The work that we're doing right here, it's because of you. And I hope that when you're 30 years old, 40, 50 years old, you look back to this moment saying, I made an impact in Federal Way forever. And so for that, I'm absolutely grateful for that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And with that, I'll end my comment. Thank you.
All right, Council President Honda.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, and thank you to the students. I appreciate what you've done for us. I would encourage council to go through the reports and write down questions and ask Tim, because he's always there to help and answer questions. And looking forward to the future. So thank you so much.
So am I understanding that this is not thanks, no thanks? That there is a thought, hands, two thumbs up there, Mayor? Is that what we're looking for?
That's right.
Okay, and get prepared for the council retreat in February.
Yep,
Yep.
Very good.
yep. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, team. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we, Council, I think we're right on target. We've got about 11 minutes till the hour. We will be in executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-1404B to discuss collective bargaining, and about 20 minutes for executive session, and a brief recess after a brief time between that and our regular city council meeting. So we shall retire for that purpose.